Welcome to the December edition of the Hornet Spotlight, and we're very excited to have with us today Ms. Jay Tao. Jay is a 1982 graduate of Beech Grove High School, and we're very excited to have her with us today. And first of all, Jay, congratulations on your selection. The Renaissance Committee selected Jay for December. She is obviously our last Hall of Famer for the year 2009. We look forward to without giving it away, having a little bit more of the same as we begin 2010. But Jay has quite a background, and we're going to go back to 1982. You were in this building, right? This is not an unfamiliar building to you.
Yes, sir. Do
you remember what was in this building in '82? What did they have the TV studio then, or?
I don't remember there being a TV studio.
Was this still the band room?
Yes, this was the band room. The layout of the school is basically the same. It looks great, though. But yes, this was the band room. So when you opened the door earlier, I wondered why we were coming in here.
Well, the band room's on the other end of the building now.
Okay.
82, early 80s, what kinds of things do you remember from your days at Beech Grove High School? I would hope they would have been pretty good days, because it appears that you made the most of them and took advantage of your opportunities here. Tell us a little bit about what was going on in the city and the school in the early 80s here in Beech Grove.
And the teachers here have always been the best. And I know that my brother felt that way, and my parents felt that way as well. And I know that that tradition has continued, because I've had two younger brothers go through the high school after that. So in the 80s is probably the same as it is now, and that Beech Grove was a small community. And we always really liked that it was a small community, and the school really supported the students, and the parents always really supported the students. I enjoyed everything that had to do with academics, all the different extracurricular activities that you could do. Beech Grove offered everything that a bigger school offered, but with the small town charm. So that's what I remember.
Do you remember any particular teachers or classes that you took that really you felt like, man, I'm glad I did this? When you got into the next level of your education, that, man, boy, I'm glad I did this, or this class was really good, or this teacher, I know what they're talking about, clicked for you?
I hate to slight any teacher,
but
the two that I remember the best were Mrs. Bray, who was my history teacher from 9th grade all the way through 12th. And she just was totally spunky, energetic, made history just the most interesting topic. And then Miss Campbell was my math teacher for advanced math. I think we had Mr. Cahill taught, and he may still teach here.
Right, he still does.
And he was an excellent math teacher as well. Miss Campbell ran the brain game team, and then she did all the advanced math, and she was just awesome. She really was the key person that led me to have math success in college. She just had excellent preparation and ability to teach math, which is so hard to do effectively. So those are the two that stand out in my mind. And then, of course, Mr. French, who taught chemistry, because that was such a difficult subject. I can't forget him. At least he got us through it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Math teachers still coach the brain game. You think there's any significance to that?
Really?
Yeah, we still have math teachers doing the brain game, and science teachers doing the academic teams as well. So some things never change. Mm-hmm. And Mr. Cahill's still teaching math, and Mr. French is retired, and unfortunately Miss Bray's passed, but some things never change. You're right. So you graduated in '82, and then you took a rather unique, you may be the only person who's ever graduated from Beech Grove that took this route to your next level of education, and you went to one of the military academies, but not what we have a long gray line out in the front display case, but you took another academy. Tell us a little bit about where you went from graduation and the process involved, and what got you to Colorado.
My first interest came when I was 14, in between my freshman and sophomore year, and my dad took myself and my brother to Colorado Springs, actually so that my brother would perhaps be interested in going there. But he wasn't interested in being that far away, I guess, and I was the one that was more intrigued with just the beauty of the place, the patriotism, seeing all the cadets in blue, and I never forgot it. I was pretty much destined to be there. Whatever it took for me to be there is where I wanted to go as soon as we left. So to get there, of course, they look at all the same things that other colleges look at, which would be GPA and class rank and extracurricular activities and SAT scores, but you have to have a nomination from either a U.S. senator or your congressman. And you do that through an application process, a letter basically that's written, and then they get so many slots. And once you get that nomination, then you apply. And depending on if you're pilot qualified or navigator qualified, kind of determines your eligibility. In other words, they want to bring in more pilot and navigator qualified people than not qualified, since their goal is to graduate 60 to 70% pilots. Or it was in the 80s. It may have changed because they've closed so many bases since then. So.
And what was your area major at the Air Force Academy?
Well, I did 2 majors actually. I started off in math, and I carried that all the way through, and then I also added human factors engineering.
Now you're gonna have to help me with that one. What is involved in that?
It's some people call it industrial engineering, but it's actually a combination of engineering and psychology. The whole idea behind it is to develop machines or tools that are engineered to be human friendly. It might be somebody that had that background, which I've actually never used in my practical life, would help to design a car interior to be most advantageous to a human being, or a bathtub, or anything. So.
Now, and I would be assuming that in the Air Force we're talking about airplanes and things of that nature, though.
Absolutely.
Helicopters and those types of things.
Right.
And that had to be a lot of work then, a double major at an academy. Did you have time to do much else other than study?
Well, at any of the academies, not just the Air Force Academy, you have a military job within your squadron, and you also have mandated intramural sports. So it's not like a regular college environment. I mean, every minute of every day is already accounted for in mandatory activities up until the time that you sleep, which is good because it totally keeps you out of trouble. And that doesn't change all the way through your senior year. When, as a freshman or a dually, you have absolutely no free time because you have a lot of military tasks and a lot of knowledge that you have to remember while you're being harassed by the upperclassmen. So it gets easier in terms of the harassment, but in terms of free time, there really isn't any free time. You have to be dedicated to wanting to go to one of those to be able. And if you're not sure, it wouldn't be a place that you would want to step into.
And I think I don't know what the percentages are, but there is a good number of freshmen or plebes or whatever, dualies.
Dualies at the Air Force
dualies
Academy.
At the Air,
plebes at
pretty good
point.
percentage of them leave first semester freshman year, would be my understanding.
I think the attrition rate is 30 to 40%. They bring in 1,600 and they hope to graduate 1,000, and they usually graduate just under 1,000.
At that time, were there a lot of female? Again, I can't think of the word. I keep wanting to say cadets. That's not right.
That's right.
Cadets.
Yes.
Were you an even smaller minority there? I'm sure.
Yep. Females were allowed at the academies, all of them, in 1976. So I graduated in 1986. So the first graduating class was 1980. So I was in the 7th graduating class of females, and there's still, I would say, was a fair amount of resentment about women being there. The men got over it by the time you were a junior, at least, because they knew that you were staying for good.
Right.
But it was about 10% female, 90% male, and I don't think that ratio has changed much over time. They've changed the way that they treat women a little bit in terms of letting them wear makeup and letting them grow their hair long and just kind of keeping them more feminine. When I came, they just kind of rolled you in, cut your hair off. There wasn't much makeup allowed until maybe you were a junior or senior. So, and maybe that was just to keep it from being a distraction, because it's you live right with the men in the same dormitories right next door. You're not split up into male and female dorms, and so maybe that's part of the plan. I'm not sure.
The military service that is required of all cadets, I assume, would be the next step after graduation. And can you tell us a little bit about your service? Did you get to see the world? What kinds of things did you do during your commitment after you graduated from the academy?
You have a 5-year service obligation if you're not a flyer, and if you're a flyer, at least when I graduated, and I've heard it's been extended, you had a 7-year obligation. You had 1 year of pilot training, and then 7 years after that you owed back. I actually saw more of the world as a cadet in different opportunities of going overseas and traveling than I did as an officer, because I was stationed just at 2 different locations, at Keesler Air Force Base in Mississippi and then at Charleston Air Force Base in South Carolina. I was not a flyer because I'm too short. You have to be 5'4", and I'm only 5'2½". And actually, when I came in, I was pilot waiverable, but depending on the politics of the time, they didn't need additional pilots, so I wasn't waiverable any longer. And so I went into communications as a communications officer, which is a unit on base that manages all the data processing equipment, the cryptographic radio equipment, all the telephone equipment. And so basically I had a unit of about 110 men and women, mostly men, that did that for Charleston Air Force Base in South Carolina.
Okay, and that was basically, those 2 stops were your 5-year
Yes.
commitment. Now, did you extend your tour of duty, or was that the end of your military career at that point?
I did not extend, and the reason was actually they were kind of pushing people out of the door. I got out in 1991 at the very end of my 5 years, and you didn't even have to fulfill that service obligation because there was a lot of closure of bases at that time, a lot of people that went through pilot training that never even flew. So if you wanted out, you could pretty much get out way before then. So I didn't want to shortchange the obligation that I felt like I owed back. So I stayed 5 years, but I left right at the 5-year point.
And that, if I can remember my history, that was right the tail end of the Reagan administration, and there wasn't a whole lot of hot places in the world at that point in time. So was that part of the reason they were kind of letting you go at that time?
You know, I really don't know all the politics that were behind it. I just know that there were a lot of sizing backwards, and the Air Force felt a significant amount of it.
Okay. So you've spent basically 9 years in a military career, and you're ready to go back. And you know, they tell you when you leave high school you're going into the real world. Now your trip through the real world's been extended about 9 years. Now you're back in civilian life, we'll use that term. And what did you pursue at that point? What was your interest? You had the math background. What other types of things were you looking to do at that point?
You know, that was a scary transition, actually. After being, the military kind of takes care of you like a whole family. You know, they provide on any individual base. You would never have to leave. Everything is provided for you. There's banking, there's grocery, there's dry cleaning, so at medical care, and everything is always free. So getting out was a scary proposition, and people don't like it when you leave. You're leaving a brotherhood, and so it was a difficult transition. Fortunately, a lot of corporate America likes junior military officers, and I, as well as many other people that were getting out at that time, got marketed to by many different companies that were putting on seminars. So I spent a good 7 months going to different junior military officer seminars where groups of corporations would come and interview us, and I just went through a series of them, and by chance is what it was, is I ran into somebody that was recruiting from Pfizer, and they explained everything that there was about that occupation, and it just intrigued me because I had never heard of pharmaceutical sales ever, and it just sounded like a better opportunity than just, I really wanted to move away from management. I had managed people, and that is a very hard thing to do. I just did not want any part of that any longer. I loved it, but it's the most challenging, and so this seemed like the right thing to do, and that's what I did. and I've stayed there ever since.
You've been there quite a while then, and you survived all these cuts and everything else.
That's my claim to fame.
With the economy. Well, there's got to be something to that. And just if you don't mind, just tell us a little bit about your position at Pfizer. Are you in the marketing or sales, or what specifically are you doing with Pfizer?
I'm in sales. My title is Senior Therapeutic Consultant, Specialty Consultant, which is a long title just to mean that I sell cardiovascular and urological products to specialists throughout Indianapolis and the Carmel-Noblesville area. But my locations have changed over the years. I've been all throughout the whole state of Indiana at any given time, but most of my career has been spent on calling on cardiologists. And Pfizer's motto is life is our life's work. I truly do believe that. We are trying to enhance people's lives through the development of medicine, and I feel very comfortable and proud to talk about the medications. Pfizer has an excellent research and development, and so that's pretty much what I do every day. And
it's so are you looking for something beyond that, or are you pretty well set? You think Pfizer's going to be it for the career, or are you looking to, you're still a young lady, you can still make the change, but you're pretty satisfied with where you're at right now?
I think until my son graduates from high school, I will stay in this occupation. I don't know if I'll pursue something outside of that. When he's off in college, I'll feel like I could actually branch out and maybe do some things. I always wanted to be kind of on a lecture circuit, talking about enthusiasm and how to make the most out of different opportunities. But I don't know. I'm going to wait until I've got another 3 or 4 years before he's off on his own.
Those kids kind of take the time, don't they? We've talked. You made mention of your son, and earlier you mentioned your parents and your siblings. Tell us a little bit about the Tao family in Beech Grove. People. I know we graduated Jake last year. Actually, we named an athletic award after Jake because he set the record for the number of athletic letters. And just tell us a little bit about your parents, how things are going in terms of the Tao family, and of course mention your son because I know we've talked about him a couple times already.
Let's see, the Tao family. My parents are doing great, and
now they're still here in town, right?
My mom still lives in town. Okay. My dad lives just outside.
Okay.
But yes, in town.
Okay.
He's been remarried for 25 years. She's been remarried 10 years, I would say. So I have Jerry, of course, my older brother, who was always my biggest source of inspiration and competition at the same time, and we still tease each other. And then my 2 younger brothers, Jared and Jake, which I was, I think, 20 or 21 when Jared was born. So that gives you our age difference, and maybe 26 or 27 when Jake was born. And then my brother has 4 kids, so I have 2 nieces, 2 nephews, and then I have 1 son who's 15, Alex. So that's kind of the Tao family in a nutshell. I was married for 11 years to Alex's dad, but I've been divorced for 10 and have had a significant other for 8, almost 9.
And looking forward to the time, I think you mentioned your son goes to Tri-West High School.
Yes, he does.
Very, very good school, from my understanding is, and he's very happy there, and you're happy having him there.
Absolutely.
And I think from one of our phone conversations, I gleaned that you like, one of the things I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you mentioned in our conversation is a lot like Beech Grove. It was small enough that they could do what they wanted to do, and you kind of took him out of a bigger school just so he could have the kind of things that you had here at Beech Grove.
Absolutely. I always tell him that I don't want him or anybody, I don't think they should leave high school with any regrets, feeling like, oh, I wish I would have done this, or I wish I would have participated in that. Just do everything that you possibly can. Well, in some of the bigger schools, I didn't go to one, but I've had friends that did, that they just weren't able to participate in things that they wanted to. And that's just, I just think that really cheats somebody, out of an opportunity, and it can have an effect on the entire rest of your life. You have to make the most out of your young days. So that was the smaller size was the biggest difference, and it has made a big difference in his attitude and ability to do things that he wanted to do. So I'm very happy about that.
And probably helped his academics right along the way. I know that's one of the things we push here with our kids is the more you're involved, and your brother Jake was a perfect example of that. The more you're involved, the more successful you're going to be academically and when you move on from here.
And it's funny how that goes hand in hand. It seems counterintuitive, and yet the busier you are, the better you usually perform.
I think it gets back to your military training there, that you count for every minute and you don't have time for any, there's no lost time there. But is there anything else? You just kind of answered my last question there. Is there anything else you would say to a student? And you pretty much, what you just said about your son is kind of the same things we tell our students here. We want them to be involved. We push their involvement. We recognize their involvement. Again, Jake's a perfect example of that. We named an award after him because he was so involved. Is there anything else you think has been a key to what has obviously been a very successful life and career for you that can be grounded right here in Beech Grove? Or am I throwing you a curveball there? You pretty much answered that one.
Well, there's a lot actually I could say on that, because I feel strongly about the fact that people tend to get categorized into certain groups, and it keeps you stagnant into what you do based on what that group thinks is appropriate. And I just challenge my son, as well as any teenager, to not get yourself categorized as into a certain grouping that would prevent you from doing something that you really wanted to do, because high school flies by in the blink of an eye. And yet what you do in high school sticks with you for the rest of your life. You'll be asked by employers, by colleges, by other administrators later on down in your life. It's extremely important. So if you want to be a thespian but somebody doesn't think it's cool, be a thespian. If you want to stick in band, if you want to do a sport that somebody thinks isn't cool, absolutely do everything, and don't have any regrets, because once it's gone, it's gone. So.
And that's exactly right. They tend to think it lasts forever, but it sure goes, it flies right by, just like you said. We have been with Jay Tao, the alumnus of the month for December 2009. We're going to wrap up 2009 with Jay, and the Renaissance Committee obviously has made another great selection. Just listening to her talk and talking with her off air prior to this interview today, she is a very focused and a very driven individual, and we're very proud to add her to the Renaissance Committee's Alumni Hall of Fame. And we look forward to making sure everyone comes in. As we get into December, there'll be a lot of people in the building for a lot of different activities. The winter sports programs are just now beginning to crank up a little bit. We're just starting on girls basketball and wrestling and girls swimming, and it won't be long before boys basketball and boys swimming join them. So there'll be a lot of people in here in December, not to mention all the vocal and instrumental programs that will be taking place in the auditorium. So make sure you stop by the front lobby and see our Hall of Famers, see what's going on in the high school, and enjoy the holiday season at Beech Grove High School, as a lot of kids are putting in a lot of hard work as we speak to make sure that you are entertained and enjoy your time here in the high school as we come around the end of the year 2009 and look forward to 2010. So again, almost forgot, got it too early. Congratulations, Jay.
Well,
we appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to come in and join us. Again, it's been Jay Tao, class of 1982, and we look forward to seeing more of you on the Hornet Spotlight as we look toward the new year of 2010. Thank you for watching.